In fact, I do not believe that the current evidence would support articles of impeachment.
You just heard from George Washington University professor Jonathan Turley, who served as one of the key witnesses for Republicans who have opened an impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. Now, of course, they allege that Biden sold his influence to secure tens of millions of dollars from foreign business people. They keep claiming that he took a ton of money from Beijing. But as you heard, Turley, who was brought forward by Republicans, made it pretty clear that there isn't enough evidence to file articles of impeachment. But guess what? He wasn't the only one who said that. You're about to hear from all the other witnesses that Republicans brought to this hearing to try to make their case.
Mr. Turley, I have a simple question for you. In your testimony today, are you presenting any firsthand witness account of crimes committed by the President of the United States?
No, I'm not.
No, you are not. Ms. O'Connor, you are the second Republican witness here today. Have you, in your testimony, presented any firsthand witness account of crimes committed by the President of the United States?
I have not.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Dubinsky, as the third and final Republican witness in this hearing, have you, in your testimony, presented any firsthand witness account of crimes committed by the President of the United States?
I have not.
And Professor Gerhardt, given that you are the minority witness, I assume the same, correct?
I am not a fact witness, correct.
Oops. Like, what is this? What is this? What are they doing? This is insane, but also really funny and amusing. I mean, it would be funnier if we weren't wasting resources on this, and it would be funnier if we weren't about to experience yet another government shutdown under Republican leadership in the House. But this is the deal that we are having to, I guess, cope with now, right? If you're active military, you should be worried about a government shutdown. You're not gonna get paid during that government shutdown. If you receive Social Security checks, you can, kiss them goodbye for however long the government shutdown lasts. Again, House Republicans can't be bothered to look out for you, but they can be bothered to engage in political theater and essentially launch an impeachment inquiry that has absolutely no evidence behind it, all in the name of politics. This is what the country has devolved to, this garbage. Now, I wanna give you more information about the witnesses who Republicans brought forward and embarrassed them today. You have George Washington University professor Jonathan Turley and forensic accountant Bruce Dubinsky. They said the panel had enough evidence to open an impeachment inquiry, but did not have enough evidence to justify impeachment charges. Another law professor, Michael Gerhardt of the University of North Carolina, said he had not heard credible evidence to justify the probe and warned the panel that it was being driven by partisan concerns. That was someone who was brought into this hearing by Republicans, not Democrats. Like, did they even bother to talk to these witnesses or understand their perspective before they, A, scheduled this hearing, and B, had them testify in this hearing? But there's more. So let's back up a little bit. What are Republicans alleging? So they're alleging that Biden and his family profited from policies he pursued as vice president during former President Barack Obama's administration between 2009 and 2017. Now, separately, they also allege that the Justice Department interfered with the criminal investigation into Hunter Biden. The same Hunter Biden who's now facing federal prosecution for failing to pay his taxes and then later paying his taxes, and also buying a gun when he was under the influence of crack cocaine, which you're not supposed to do. But I would venture to say that in a country that is in the throes of one of the worst drug epidemics imaginable, we're swimming in guns, and I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people who bought those guns or went through background checks for those guns, alleging that they weren't addicted or on any drugs at all. So are we gonna just federally prosecute all these people over that? Okay, but he's facing those charges, and a plea deal that he had worked out with the prosecutors has been thrown out. So what is the argument when it comes to Hunter Biden? Hunter Biden's being held accountable. maybe one of the first cases of someone tied to an individual in a position of power who's gonna face actual charges, is facing actual charges, and possibly conviction of these charges. Now, at the center of the investigation are allegations that Joe Biden, as vice president, pressured Ukraine to fire a top prosecutor by the name of Viktor Shokin to shield Burisma as Hunter Biden served on the board of that Ukrainian gas company. But this has been adjudicated again and again and again. Turns out Viktor Shokin was super corrupt. And it was United States policy to fire that prosecutor, to pressure the Ukrainians to fire the corrupt prosecutor who in fact was not investigating Burisma. He wasn't doing his job because he was corrupt. Now, if Biden did pressure Ukraine to fire this top prosecutor because he was trying to provide cover for his son's criminal dealings, okay, great, but A, where are Hunter Biden's criminal dealings with Burisma? There's no evidence of that. And B, how do you account for the fact that this was literally US policy at the time? It wasn't Biden policy. Biden was simply the vice president who carried out the policy. And then finally, they claim that numerous US and foreign officials have said that Biden was carrying out, I should note this. So numerous US and foreign officials have said that Biden was carrying out foreign policy to fight corruption in Ukraine when he called for the firing of Viktor Shokin. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's go back to the fun. So the hearing was so laughable that Democrats started clowning House Republicans, especially James Comer, for just how embarrassing the entire hearing was. Here's a little taste of that.
Steve Bannon just went on and said perhaps the Republicans shouldn't have started with a witness. He was talking about Professor Turley, who was going to say right off the bat that there wasn't an impeachable offense. I quote, he says, perhaps we should have put him on the maybe list for one of our witnesses.
That was Democratic Representative Moskowitz basically referencing what Steve Bannon literally did say on his podcast. I went back to see if it was true. It was true. Here's Bannon commenting on the hearing today.
One of the professors there, it gives the opening dialogue, and he's got some nice things he's laying out, and he's impeachable. And then Raskin, right on his cross, gets, and I think I heard this correctly. Well, have you seen any impeachable offenses? No. Is this worse than Trump on January 6th? No. That's maybe not a witness I call initially to lay out the case.
Why? Because he didn't say what you were hoping he would say? Bannon's the guy who defrauded Trump supporters who had donated millions of dollars to help fund Trump's border wall. What Bannon later did was he took the money and he stuffed it in his pockets. He was prosecuted for that. He was found guilty of that. And you know what Trump did? He swooped right in and pardoned him. Looked out for his criminal buddies. That's who Steve Bannon is. So it's rich to hear Steve Bannon talk about the criminality of anyone else when he himself is a criminal. Someone who stole from donors, grassroots individuals who thought they were donating to something that turns out they weren't actually donating to, because the real people who benefited from that money were people like Steve Bannon, who like really fancy things, real working class warrior there. But with that said, look, you've lost Bannon in regard to how this hearing went, but you've also lost conservative media because Neil Cavuto weighed in on it, and here's what that looked like.
I don't know what was achieved over these last 6+ hours. Welcome everybody, I'm Neil Cavuto. I want to put in perspective here though, and we are going to legally go through all the details, but James Comer, the Oversight Committee chairman, had said that there would be presented a mountain of evidence against Mr. Biden. It was referring to President Biden, but none of the expert witnesses today presented yet any proof for impeachment. Now, to be clear, this was not about impeachment. This was about launching an impeachment inquiry. But it is worth pointing out that none of the witnesses today were fact witnesses. That means that none were involved in the investigation into the alleged activities in the first place. What's more, none of the witnesses testified today of direct knowledge of what Republicans have been claiming about Joe Biden.
Because that evidence, as far as we know, doesn't exist. We would have seen it by now. absolute clown show.
Thanks for watching. If you become a member, you get to watch all this ad-free, except for, of course, this ad. Still, hit the join button below.